Welcome to the Stabilisation Academy, and today our topic is on the calcaneus. We're taking a closer look at heel strike motion. So the main text I'm using for this, and I'm doing things the old-fashioned way, is Thomas Michaud, Human Locomotion, The Conservative Management of Gait-Related Disorders by Newton Biomechanics. Okay, over the last 28 odd years, I've looked at a lot of texts and read a lot of research and stuff. And to me, this one here is the most concise when dealing with whole body global biomechanics, not just the foot. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the calcaneus. And the calcaneus is the largest bone in the foot and the initial point of contact during walking. The calcaneus is incredibly sturdy and very resistant to fractures. But how much do we actually truly understand about its function? So this episode delves into the significance of the calcaneus in foot mechanics and explores potential implications if it fails to perform its role effectively. Okay, so the calcaneus plays a vital role in shock absorption. That's its number one actual function. And it also acts as a pivot point during the transition from heel strike to lowering the forefoot to the ground. The calcaneus actually faces significant vertical forces upon contact due to its very thin cortical bone and sparse trabeculae, which are honeycomb-like chambers, and these create a hollow structure that functions as a cushion during heel strike. It has a very well-developed vascular supply, and this maintains elevated intraosseous pressure, reinforcing the slender cortical bone to flex with the application of the ground reaction forces. The closer to the bone that these little honeycomb chambers are, the denser and more fibrous they actually become, just like the discs of a spine. It has the ability to actually spread out, neutralize, and evenly disperse the shock into the calcaneus itself. So during heel strike, the walls of the calcaneus bulge slightly, and the trabeculae, with their very rich blood supply, swiftly repair microfractures from repeated impacts. The thin cortical walls make it easier to diagnose stress fractures, as when you squeeze the medial and lateral walls, this may cause discomfort when a stress fracture is present. Now, the calcaneus is protected by a very well-designed fat pad made up of spiral changes of sealed fat surrounded by fibroelastic tissue, allowing the fat pad to deform and return to its original shape, absorbing shock effectively. The fat pad reduces peak pressure points beneath the heel during static stance by evenly distributing pressure over the calcaneal surface. So I've got a little picture here of it, and it's a nice little fat pads that disperse underneath. Very important. And the closer to the actual calcaneus they get, the more dense they get, so they improve the ability to actually absorb shock. The calcaneus also makes walking more efficient. You just have to look at the rounded shape of the calcaneus, allowing to roll and generate momentum without utilizing muscles. Walking with a heel strike pattern also reduces the metabolic cost of walking by 53%. So this enhances the exchange of kinetic and potential energy, reduces mechanical work by the limbs further up the chain, lessens the ground reaction force moment at the ankle, and then also looks at decreasing muscular activity in the ankle, knee, hip, and back. Another cushioning effect that occurs during this heel motion is subtalar joint pronation, which occurs from heel strike all the way until the first MPJ plants itself on the ground at mid-stance in a tripod position. This is an important and normal movement. So when the heel hits the ground on the outside part and then instantly rolls in and then rolls forward until the first MPJ makes contact with the ground in a tripod position, which means equal pressure underneath the big toe joint, little toe joint, and the center of the heel. And this occurs just before propulsion. When heel striking is not efficient, It can impact not only the foot, but also the entire chain of movement. Gait operates as a series of interconnected actions where one movement influences the next, creating a domino effect throughout the body. So what happens if we don't properly transition from heel strike to reaching a stable tripod position in the mid-stance phase? Here's a list of all the common compensations. We have early departure onto the forefoot, where literally the forefoot slaps the ground or is very heavy. And when you're actually looking at gait with a client, it actually sounds like they're like a herd of elephants walking down the actual hallway. They have a very bouncy gait. You've seen those athletes that literally bob up and down, okay, as they're walking. They also have a weak anterior compartment. So we're looking at anterior tibialis and the long and short extensors of the toes. They have a tonic, very tight and overactive posterior compartment. There's weak and shortened lateral compartments, so we're looking particularly at peroneus longus, ITB, even all the way up to the TFL. You get loss of shock absorption. So if you've got the heel that's like literally hitting the ground on a regular basis, okay, we're talking about vertical shock here. When you get vertical shock through a bone, what happens? You get osteophytes and bone growth. So it may be one of those common things that the reason why a lot of people get a lot of bone spurs, particularly on the bottom of the heel here, is purely because there's a loss of shock absorption. And when you get a loss of shock absorption, you get bone growth. Therefore, heel spurs. Mechanical nerve impingement issues, particularly the medial calcaneal nerve and the lateral plantar calcaneal nerve. Haglund's deformity issues at the back part of the heel. So if you're unable to roll in and your foot is held in an inverted position, then you're actually going to get rubbing of the back of the heel where the Haglund's deformity is on the back of the shoe. And you can actually get nerve impingement issues there, and it's not very pleasant for a client. And lateral posterior ankle issues, just to name a few. So once again, if you don't pronate or roll in hardly at all from heel strike to get to the nice little flat bit of the bottom of the calcaneus, a lot of people will also present with a lot of lateral ankle pain underneath the lateral malleolus. And depending on how well they get to their tripod position, they can actually have issues up the whole entire lateral aspect of the lateral part of the forefoot as well. So how cool is the heel? It has such an important role in absorbing the shock of the body as it hits the ground. If you wish to learn more about gait and the most important parts of the foot you need to consider when looking at gait, then join me in my webinar in early June. The information is in the transcript and at the end of this video. I hope I will see you then.